Well, welcome. This is George G, and the time is right. Welcome to our monthly book club, and welcome our author, the strong and powerful Chris Felton. Chris, are you ready to do this?
I am ready, brother. Thanks for
Uh,
having me.
Excited to have you back on the show. Chris is a financial services entrepreneur. He's a speaker, a best-selling author. His newest book is Think and Grow You. Get out of your own way and level up your life. Chris, tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and what motivated you to put pen to paper.
Yep, 51-year-old in Denver, Colorado. Been a financial services entrepreneur for the last 23 years and have grown a great national business. Married my second and last wife in 2006, and we wrote a book called Couples Money, which you and I talked about last time I was on. But basically, just how we went from financial disaster to financial prosperity and independence, and then been inspired to just get out my new book that I've been writing for the last 12 months and grinding like I've never grinded before, my friend. And but excited to get the message out because I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Oh, amen. So think and grow you, get out of your own way and level up your life. Sounds like it's more than just money.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean George, being an entrepreneur, I've I know what it's like to be stuck. I don't know if you've ever been stuck,
For sure.
but living in fear, doubt, worry. I know what it feels like, that you're doing everything possible, or you feel like you're doing everything possible, and like nothing changes, or it gets worse, right? It's Bill Murray and Groundhog Day, and I was such a mess in so many areas of my life, and I've coached a lot of people on getting unstuck, but it's painful to watch people get so stuck that they just kind of give up and quit because it feels like the thing to do, and then they just they kind of get to the end of their lives and they just have a lot of regrets, and it just is. I was so close to doing that, but I chose another way. I knew I had to grow. I knew I had to do things differently. So I went all in on my personal growth and my personal development. And as I think it's an author, Mel Robbins, one of my favorite quotes is, it doesn't work overnight, but it works over time.
Hmm.
That focus on growth and development just, transformed my life. So that's what the book's about, is basically me throwing myself under the bus a multitude of times and sharing how stuck I was, but actually, hey, here's what I did differently. Here's some steps, and then here's how it changed. And so lots of practical stuff, lots of personal stories, and I share my dirty laundry to hopefully inspire people that they can do it too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And from my experience, the more vulnerable that I can be with people, that's usually when my message actually gets across to people. So I appreciate that. You said you're close to giving up. What is that? What would that have meant?
Oh, I mean, it would have been disastrous. It's actually it's a chapter in my book. It's called "Quitter's Relief is
Hmm.
a Lie." So quitter's relief is a lie. And it's kind of like that, that rubber band that gets stretched and stretched and stretched and stretched. And then you take the tension off and you kind of pull back and you come back. And just right as you're ready to have a breakthrough, a lot of people just quit and pull back. And the mentality is, oh, I don't have to do that again. And you feel that initial relief. But then like, like a sugar crash is self-esteem, and there's a crash in confidence, and you crash, and then it's not a good thing, and then quitting becomes really easy. So I fortunately caught myself before I quit, and I talk about some of the steps I took to keep moving forward even though I didn't want to.
You hear about how people will give up, and it's like darkest before the dawn. You give up when you're so close to finishing it. Is that sort of what you're Is that something you've experienced? Except you didn't give up. You kept going through.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, services entrepreneur. I'm in the Great Recession. My wife is pissed. I mean, I was bleeding money every month. I mean, it was pretty dark, George. I mean, it was really bad, but I just it's another chapter in the book. I call it the line in the sand moment, where I just kind of drew a line in the sand and I just told myself, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with living this way, because that's the problem when you're in that environment. You start getting used to dysfunction and it starts becoming familiar,
Mhm.
and you start tolerating it. And there was such a heavy price that others were paying, and that was actually what snapped me out of it. Was, holy cow, man, like, I'm paying a price. My kids were small. I lived on the other side of the country. I hadn't seen them in almost a year. My wife, I mean, the stress, her health, my health. I mean, there was just a multitude of people that were paying such a heavy price, George. And that's what kind of snapped me out of it. I'm like, I'm kind of the common theme here to all these issues. And but it was very empowering to just draw that line in the sand in the moment and look my wife in the eye, and I just said, hey, we will never be back here again. And I kept my word, thank God.
Nice.
And we made a pretty amazing move, which I'm grateful for.
Nice. Well done. Recognition of it and then actually taking action and coming out the other side. I think that that's awesome. And, the more stories like that we can hear, that other people are going through it, that it's possible for us to do it as well. So you make the decision to write the book, and you've got lots of personal experience to draw from, good, bad, ugly. Uh, how do you then distill it down? You say, okay, like I could write a book about, I could write a 5,000 page book, but nobody probably wants to read that. How did you decide which areas to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I got mentored by a guy named Steve Siebold. I don't know. I probably talked about him last time, maybe George. But Steve's a personal development guru. Sold over 3 million books. He called me, in 2021. He was like, "I've heard you speak forever, man. Like, you need to write a book." And so it was actually his directions. So the way I started, it was all he's like, just write your personal history. And then from that, we pulled, the best concepts, the best stories, which was counterintuitive to, I'm a recovered CPA, right? I'm a left brain guy. And I'm like, oh, I got to teach, 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 teach. He's like, no, actually, it's the stories they're going to remember, my friend. So we need to start with the stories and then build the content from the stories. And so that's what we did. So it was just the most transformational stories, that the problem I wanted to solve was helping people get unstuck. And so it was my top stories of how I got unstuck. And and it was around money and relationships and spirituality and, business and sales. And I was just stuck in so many areas of my life. And I just kind of share what I did. So I'm excited to get it out and get it in people's hands, because I really believe it's going to make a big impact.
I love it. And certainly it's a very natural thing, very human to sort of want to zero in on a problem and say, okay, I really need to work on my relationship with my partner, or now I'm going to work on my money. When in reality, probably it serves us to take a more comprehensive, for lack of a better term, holistic view at everything.
Yeah, I mean, it does. But one of the things I had to get pretty focused on was my money issues and my money beliefs and all that. And it's one of my favorite quotes of Billy Graham. Once you get your attitude straight around money, it helps straighten out every area of your life.
Hmm.
Billy Graham said that. And by changing my belief systems around money, it actually bled into Like that quote could not have been more perfect for me, because I had to work on forgiveness. I had to work on, I had to work on judgment and resentment. And I mean, all these massive battery drainers that we have in our lives. And by understanding that that was how I was going to create wealth, was by working on those things, then it actually it bled into a lot of other areas. And so like I said, that quote could not have been more appropriate for me, because it really did level up Georgia pretty much every area of my life. So
It's the classic physician heal thyself, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
It's like here you are, experience, having helped thousands upon thousands of people over the course of a 20-year career, and struggling with some big things, forgiveness, judgment, resentment around money. And that's something that I have to think, Chris, like 99% of us struggle with, because money is just such a challenging thing in our society. Maybe it always has been. Maybe it's true in every society.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of podcasts, a lot of podcasts nationally. I mean, yeah, it's an issue everywhere, and money's neutral, and what we add to money, our mentality is what happens. And unfortunately, we're programmed with limiting beliefs around money at an early age. We don't have a fighting chance, because we have to take on the garbage of those that influence us. And then society just programs us that money's bad, and political cycles, it's like, oh, they don't pay their taxes, and all that garbage. Movies villainize it anyway. So and studies show that most of the top 1 to 5% of net worth and wealth, like, they had the same battles, but at some point, and me, it was my late 30s, I had to kind of call BS on it and just examine how these beliefs had been handed down for generations in my family that created a lot of broke. I had to call a timeout and say, okay, why am I buying this stuff? Because based on results, it's not serving me very well. Why am I buying into this? And so that's the work I did, and that's what a lot of people that move up in that level, they have to examine it, and they got to replace it and upgrade their belief systems, or pay the consequences, unfortunately.
How did you figure like what triggered you, the line in the sand? You're like, okay, enough. I cannot continue this any longer. I need to move forward. But then how did you figure out that you needed to dig into your existing and limiting beliefs about money?
Well, I mean, it's we've been through some crazy stuff the last few years, the pandemic, and it's just this outside in approach to life just doesn't work very well. Where it's, oh, well, that's happening, and then therefore that's going to make me feel a certain way, and that's going to dictate my thinking, and that's going to fuel more of this. Joe Dispenza calls it a negative feedback loop, where you're just in this loop, and that is what really creates stuck. And so that's how I was unconsciously living for decades. And then finally it was like, I got to figure out how this dude is creating these results, because I was giving pretty speeches, George, on your thinking creates your world, and and it was all BS. It was all for show, right? I mean, I was
Oh,
just trying to look like the smart guy in the room, but I was like, maybe I should attend my own lecture and and listen listen to this. I'm like, well, and then my coach always said, based on results, what must you be thinking? And that was my commitment to my wife. She's like, okay, we're staying together. We're not getting divorced. We're going to figure this out. And she's like, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how my thinking keeps creating this. And so, it was a relationship to the results of my life. And most people don't have a relationship to results. They live in delusion, right? One of my favorite quotes is, optimism and delusion sleep in the same bed together, right? And that was
mm.
that was me. I was very optimistic, but super delusional, because I didn't want to look at my life because we don't want to look at our lives because we don't want to feel bad about ourselves. And so if we don't look at it, then it gets worse. And we don't want to look at it and just, it spirals out of control. So it was, I had a coach that put a mirror in front of me and saying, "Hey, do you like these results? No. Probably need to change, bud." And that's kind of the overall theme of the book is you got to be willing to change. You have to do the work, but it's worth it.
I love it. So I think you said that you wrote a book in 2006, and it's been a couple of years since then. Walk me through the process that you used to actually get this book written.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2006 is when we got married, and then my wife and I wrote our book in 2011. That was Couples Money, and then Think and Grow You started late 2021, November 2021, and then it's done. So that was about 12, 13-month process. But were you asking about that
Yep.
book or?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the actual process. If it's done daily, if you said we're gonna allocate this much
Oh,
time every
yeah.
day.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I think, I mean, everyone's got a book in them. You probably heard everyone says that, but I think, the process of having a mentor that really knows what they're doing. And he said, write your personal history, because a lot of people are like, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, I got all this content on social media and like, I'll just hire a ghostwriter. And he's like, no, that's dumb, because if you're writing, and like me, if you say a little prayer to be guided before you write, amazing things flow through you. And when you start writing your personal history, George, I'm like, oh my God, that happened in junior high. Like I almost quit basketball because I didn't think I was going to make the team. Like that came up. But in that moment, I shifted, right? All this stuff came up where I was going to quit, and hand of God or wherever you want to call it. But I shifted. If I wouldn't have gone through the process of writing my personal history, none of that stuff would have came up. And so these stories didn't make the book, but it definitely flushed out some things. But yeah, I mean, I'm an early riser, but I just, whether it was 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, sometimes it's 45 minutes a day, I'd work on a concept. And then the process, with Steve, once again, he sold 3.5 million books. He's made 20 million in speaking fees, and the guy's just world class. So I'd send it over and I thought it was awesome. And he's like, it's not that good. It's too much. Like, it's got to be simple. He's like, we got to get the word simple. When people read it, and when you read my book, George, you'll see it. It's got to be simple. It's got to flow. There can't be fluff. There can't be this. It's got to flow, Chris. It's got to be easy to read. Flow, easy to read. Flow, easy to read. Flow, easy to read. So he drilled that into my mind. So I was just sending a couple concepts every 2 weeks, and then he would, send it back. And we took our time, and he said, you should grind on the first draft. He's like, a lot of people throw out a first draft, they rewrite in the second draft. He's like, no, the second, third, fourth, fifth draft should be simple to do. You grind on the first. So we spent probably 8 months on the first draft.
Nice.
But yeah, anyway, I don't know if that was too much detail for
No, it's
you,
perfect.
but yeah, I was grateful that I had him.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming back on. Congratulations on getting your back against the wall and starting to swing and coming out the other side. And congratulations on the book. Where can people pick up their own copy of Get Out of Your Own Way? Or I'm sorry, Think and Grow You, Get Out of Your Own Way and Level Up Your Life.
Yeah, Think Grow You, no and sign there. thinkgrowyou.com. And then chrisfelton.me is another place to do it. And people can learn more about my journey, how to reach out, speaker workshops. I'm working on the workshops right now. I probably have 5 to 7 workshops I can do based on this book. So it's written in such a format that if anyone's looking for speakers or workshops, I can literally send them the book and they can go, hey, can you can you come in and talk these 3 or 4 concepts and make it specific for our crew? So Steve had me write in such a way that I can custom tailor talks to fit people's audience's needs. So anyway,
Love it. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Chris your appreciation and share today's show with a friend that also appreciates good ideas. Pick up your copy of Think and Grow You at thinkgrowU.com. You can also go to Chris Felton, ChrisFelton.me, and get your copy and keep your eye out for the other resources that Chris has coming out. And if you've got an organization or company, if you're looking for a great speaker, there'll be opportunities for the workshops there as well. Thanks again, Chris.
George, thanks, man. Appreciate you as always.
And until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.